Yo, what's up guys? Sorry, again, I did not do my hair, and I've been forgetting to use the Christmas hat. But today we're going to be reacting to Did Dream fake his speedruns response? Now, if you didn't know, there was a big controversy over did this, famous person, YouTuber, fake his, speedruns and stuff. And this guy, he made a video, and it was a crazy video, saying that he had a 1 in 72 trillion chance of doing that, and it was all like this. It was almost an hour long. It was really big. I watched it. I don't really know what to think about it because I was waiting to do a reaction. I was going to do a reaction to that, but I didn't want to post it too early because people will make assumptions too early, and I want to get this person's response. And I thought this was fun because, it's been a while since we've got, I don't know, a YouTube controversy, and this is getting, and people reacting to it's getting a lot of views. So yeah, it's not just for views, but I want to get my reaction on camera too. So it's a little different, more different reactions. But anyway, let's just get into it. Also, I have my quesadilla because it's a 20-minute video. It's not that
Probability. Probability is the measurement of how
now.
likely something is to happen. Recently, one of my speedruns that I did on Twitch has been analyzed by the SpeedRun.com volunteer mod team and deemed as improbable to a degree that is nearly impossible. So lucky, in fact, that they came to the mathematical conclusion that it had 1 in 7.5 trillion odds of happening. So they put out a video and a long document talking about it, and this is my response.
Good professional statistic analysis, public practicing astronomers. Oh yeah, apparently he got like people from Harvard to help him on this, professional mathematicians.
Now, I'm not sure if you realize how big of a number that is, but that is basically impossible. You have better odds of winning the lottery 3 times in a row. So ever since this math was done, I've had people spamming me, calling me a cheater, and insisting that there's nothing I can possibly say or do to refute the fact that I cheated. Now, every speedrun that I've ever uploaded on my YouTube channel is still verified and still on the leaderboards, including a 6th place run in 1.15, but the run that I did on my Twitch on 1.16 is no longer on it. Now, I plan on going over in detail each of these points later, but I want to summarize some misconceptions right at the beginning. 1, the only speedrun that was unverified was a 5th place run that I did on a stream a couple months ago, and all of the world record videos that I posted are still verified. One of the mods said, quote, "We have no reason to believe that any of the 1.15 runs are cheated." 2, the odds are wrong.
Okay.
I hired a professional statistician with a PhD that is an active astrophysicist to write an analysis, and I'll be going over parts of that analysis today. 3, I did not delete any evidence, and I was doing everything I was asked to by the mods, and I actually have one of the mods on later to come and confirm that.
Whoa.
And 4, not all of my 1.16 live streams were used for the data.
Because in the video, if you didn't see the video, he said that, Dream did not give them any information about, his files and stuff. And he said, the mods even said it. But now he's having, the actual mods coming on to actually talk about what happened. Okay, that is...
Only the 6 luckiest ones were. I had 5 other streams before those streams I did on 1.16, but they had below average luck and were not included in their analysis. I had the expert include these streams in a much smaller, separate analysis, which concluded that with these 11 streams included, the data shows, quote, "no statistically significant evidence that Dream was modifying the probabilities."
Okay.
So,
Shut my door.
now that we got
Shut my door. Okay.
the misconceptions out of the way, which I will go over later, the math. I'm not that good at math, and I'm sure a lot of you watching this may not be either, so I found somebody who is amazing at math and specializes in probability to help get to the bottom of it. Bill Nye, the science guy. Yes, you heard me right. Okay, I'm just kidding.
I was about to be like,
That's a
he's
joke.
not even a
That's
real
joke.
scientist.
A professor with a PhD that graduated from Harvard that's actually a practicing astrophysicist that is an expert in statistics and astrostatistics. After reaching out to this expert, he insisted that if he was going to do this analysis, that I must agree to release his findings regardless of if they made me look good or they made me look bad. Knowing that I'm innocent, I agree.
Okay.
The mod team is a group of respectable people, but they're also young and a group of volunteers, so it's hard to fault them for making mistakes when compared to a full-time professional with a specific expertise in a field like this. After extensive research into the mod's math and the logic and reasoning behind this math, the expert found that the math was off.
Whoa!
In the description of this video, there's a link to a 19-page report written by this expert that is extremely detailed into exactly what they got wrong and why. I won't be going over it entirely in this video, but for the people more interested in the math, it's linked in the description. I will be going over what I think are the most important parts though.
Okay.
First of all, the math was off by at least 7.4998 trillion.
Whoa!
And the original number was 7.5 trillion. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a huge number. So it's also a huge number to be off by. On the screen right now is a representation of how far they were off by. Again, I'm sure the mods did their best, but when talking about someone's character and their image, making mistakes as big as this can be really damaging. After coming to an estimate of a new probability, the expert said this, quote, "Even in the worst case, the probabilities are not so extreme as to rule out any chance that Dream used the unmodified probabilities." The expert also said, quote, "If you ask, what is the probability that anyone playing Minecraft has luck as good as Dream did during these 11 streams, then the odds are very high. Dream's luck can be described not in terms of unusual success in the game, but that out of all of the Minecraft players, it was him who got this lucky, and he got this lucky while live streaming. But remember, this could not be counted against him, because he was investigated precisely because he got very lucky." Okay. I actually ran a survey where I gave 100 random people 2 options on what the number they talked about meant. Option 1, the odds of a top 1000 speedrunner on video or stream getting the luck that I got, or option 2, the odds of anyone doing piglin trades in Minecraft getting the luck that I got. Every single person out of the 100 said option 2. They, and probably you watching this based on the survey, figured...
When you start talking about the blazes, I was a little like, because he might have cheated. I hope he didn't, but I think he has a higher chance of cheating with the piglin and not the blaze. I feel like that was just something to throw people off, because I recently went into the Nether to like practice and stuff like Minecraft, because I want to do some speedruns sometime soon and like stuff and manhunts. But I found that blaze rods, like, it wasn't like, oh, there were like 7 blaze rods that he killed and each one got 1 blaze rod, which that didn't really make sense, because I got really lucky with the blaze rods. And I mean, technically, if you want to like say, oh, he cheated, you can be like, well, I don't have any proof, and that is true. Actually, no, I do have proof. I recorded it. It was part of my recording I cut out. But I don't see why anyone would question me if you ever... comment down below if you want to see my secret video. But yeah, Blaze, they drop a lot of like blaze rods. So I can't... I kind of was like questioning, like, that doesn't really make sense. It was more the piglins that he could have cheated.
That the mods presented the odds of this happening to anyone while trading with piglins. They didn't think that this was the odds of this happening to someone while speedrunning, being a top 1000 speedrunner on stream or video. As a good example, pick a number between 1 and 10. Go ahead, right now, pause, 8. Pick a number between 1 and 10. You had a 10% chance of picking the number 7 just then. Now, out of the millions of people watching this, there's probably quite a lot of you that picked that number, but there may only be a few thousand that are recording but also picked the number 7. And there may even be fewer of you that were doing a reaction to this, or a live and also picked the number 7. That doesn't change the odds of you picking the number 7, it's still about 10%, but the odds of you being live and picking the number 7, now we're talking about 0.0001%, or somewhere around there. Now, you can see why it might be misleading to say, streamer had 0.0001% of getting this lucky, even though it's technically true. But it doesn't change the fact that you had a 10% chance of getting that number, regardless of if you were...
I am thirsty. I'm back. I'm back. Okay. For a second, I was singing the Michael Jackson song, but I'm saying I'm back. Okay. Let's get back right into it.
Streaming or not. In the words of the professor that wrote the document, quote, "Extremely low probability events happen at random all the time. If you consider, for example, every Minecraft player, then a perfect run, 2 out of 2 Ender Pearl trades and 7 out of 7 Blaze Rod drops, probably occurs multiple times an hour. Considering all Minecraft worlds ever played and the multitude of ways in which luck plays a role, even 1 in a trillion events happen daily." But that's not even getting into their actual math, that's just about how they presented it. The first thing that's wrong is that they did not correctly account for trade stopping. Basically, when you trade with a piglin, you trade until you reach enough Ender Pearls to then leave and go to the stronghold. When you get enough Ender Pearls, you immediately stop trading and leave other uncompleted trades. This is a quote from the expert's report. quote, if the last barter in a sequence is always an ender pearl, because then the speedrunner leaves, then it simply cannot be claimed that all barters are fully independent and identical. Without identical independent barters, the binomial model is inappropriate. In order to prove that the trade stopping was important, the expert ran a simulation over 1,000,000 times that shows that his model is far more accurate to how trading actually works than the model used in the report. Quote, the barter stopping simulation does indeed show that there are fewer barters required to get the desired number of ender pearls if you end immediately after an ender pearl barter. It also helps explain why charts showing Dream's bartering outcomes seem unbalanced with respect to ender pearls. They don't account for the fact that ender pearls are special because they are the goal of bartering.
Okay, can I say one thing? If you don't play games, you probably won't understand, but I know many people who play games, they've probably got like something, a super rare item, or like something like rare or like very lucky before. And like, I think everyone who's played games, they've got really lucky before. But I feel like he would be lucky 2 times. Because the Blaze Rod, I've been playing a lot of 1.16 Minecraft, and the Blaze Rod things was never like a problem for me. But finding a fortress was. So I would say it would be 2 problems. I'm still kind of iffy on the pearls. Because I tried getting
odds
pearls,
extremely more likely. The expert says that, quote, this model has objectively a higher fidelity and thus a more accurate estimate of Dream's odds. However, another thing that's been used against me is that when comparing this lucky streak to Illumina or another popular runner, my streak of runs looks much luckier than, say, a streak of lucky runs they had. Again, here's another quote from the document from the expert. Quote, the low probability of Dream's runs and that Dream performed much better than other speedrunners should not be considered as independent pieces of evidence. They both indicate the same thing.
Okay.
Any lucky speedrunner chosen because they look lucky will look lucky when compared to other speedrunners. Not to mention that a lot of speedrunners run constantly offline, including a lot of the top 5 times. And these runs are verified, despite not being able to look into their RNG at all.
I want to get to the file things.
Another thing that the mods got wrong were a few of the bias corrections. The mods claimed that they biased everything in my favor, and that the number they came up with was the lowest possible probability in my favor. One thing that they mentioned in their investigation is that they came up with the number 10 for the number of potential targets for a cheater to change. They also said that this was a generous exaggeration, as they could only think of a few. This confused me, so I asked them for a list. When I asked for the list of the 10 that they were referring to, they were unable to provide one, and they inferred that it was arbitrarily chosen. So I decided to come up with a list myself of all the possible targets that a cheater would try and cheat in speedrunning that have similar importance to Blaze Rods. I was able to come up with a detailed list of 37 different RNG targets that I believed were very comparable to Blaze Rods. I shared this list with a few speedrunning experts, including Illumina and Benix, and they seemed to agree that the 37 I listed were fair, and incredibly more accurate than the random number 10 that there was before. This was actually a recurring theme throughout the document. They would say a number and claim that the number was the most favorable number possible for me, and then use it in calculations, and then when me, other runners, or the expert would look into it, it would turn out that the number that they claimed was the best possible number in my favor was so far from it that it usually was actually the worst possible number against me. Another example of this is that they claimed that the formula they used would find the lowest possible odds in my favor, but the expert tested their formula on their own example of coin flips and found that their lower bound, or what they claimed to be the lowest possible odds in my favor, were actually twice as high as the actual odds of a coin flip streak, meaning the formula they used was extremely flawed against me, and it only gets more flawed when talking about lower probabilities. In the report, the expert says, quote, the claim that the p-values given in the MST report are as favorable as possible is not supported by our investigation. The biggest problem that I have with this is that the way that the mods document was written and presented in the video made me look as guilty as possible, while also putting into the watcher's mind that not only are these numbers right, but they are the best possible scenario.
Yeah.
Even the numbers that the expert came up with are not.
I'm sorry I'm pausing this so much, but I mean, you can't always, because people always say, oh, you can't trust people on the internet. Like, oh, he can be cheating. But, like, nobody really talked about how, like, where did he get this, like, math? Like, where, like, what, how, like, is there, like, prove him? Like, I didn't really see him, like, showing, like, where he got this, like, these formulas, math, and everything, and, like, prove it was right, but, like, he is right now.
The best possible scenario for me, and they are already way less than what the mods put. Obviously, the way that they phrased it makes me look really guilty, and it was something that they didn't even need to do because the numbers looked bad already. One thing that he says at the beginning that I think is notable in his report is that he says, quote, probability calculations are hard. There may not be one right way to do something. It is easy to violate some hidden or unknown assumption. What I take away from this is that when talking about a series of events and trying to calculate the probability of them happening, it's really complicated, and different methods are constantly debated in statistics. And that's the reason why a lot of times statistics are thrown out in actual court, because they can be misleading and lead to false convictions off of faulty statistics, even on accident. Probability is extremely complicated, and there are tens of thousands of things that you have to take into account when coming up with an accurate representation of probability, especially on a non-random sample. Although the analysis done by the expert shows that the odds are much lower than the odds of the mods presented, this was done in about a week, and I'm sure that there's a lot of other ways that the data can be interpreted and corrected to make it even more accurate. The expert even mentioned at the end of the document that there are possible corrections that can be applied that would reasonably bring the number down to 1 in a million or even lower. As much as I would love to debate math and statistics for the next 2 years, I'd rather just say, hey, here's what an expert said, take it as you will.
Scam.
On top of everything I've said so far, numbers can be really misleading. As an example, when you create a Minecraft world, that world has a random number created with it, the seed. That random number determines how your Minecraft world looks. That means that each different Minecraft world you've created had a 1 in 281 trillion chance of being that world. It gets even crazier when you start to combine the odds together. If you created 2 Minecraft worlds, the odds of you getting the first world and then the second world are so low that you cannot even calculate them on 99% of calculators. Yet, you obviously did get those 2 worlds in a row. No one can tell you otherwise. But again, that's misleading. But it's still true. Each individual seed has no significant importance, and you are going to get a Minecraft world no matter what. So it's actually not that significant. But the way that I phrased it made it seem significant because of how rare it is. Another different way that odds can be misleading is with the lottery. The odds of you winning the lottery may be 1 in 100 million, but with 100 million people buying lottery tickets, someone probably won. And surprisingly, there's actually far more players that play Minecraft than that play the lottery. You can compare this directly to Minecraft speedrunning, because with 100 million people playing Minecraft, tens of millions of people doing millions of piglin trades, someone will be the luckiest player in Minecraft, and someone will be the unluckiest player in Minecraft. Might be you. Who knows? But the chances are that there are probably thousands of players that have experienced 1 in 100 million or more piglin trading luck without even realizing it. So, now that we've established that numbers can be misleading and talked about where the mods went wrong with their analysis according to a statistical expert, I want to move a little bit off the numbers. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the video. In GeoSquare's video, he says this.
We asked Dream for his mods folder specifically so we could check for any modification, but he was unable to provide any evidence since he says he deletes the contents of his mods folder pretty regularly.
What he said
that obviously makes me seem very suspicious, except for the fact that I didn't ever say that. I provided the mods with every file they ever asked for, and I never said that I regularly delete the contents of my mod folder. Actually, the verification team was disorganized and never even asked me anything involving my mod folder until 10 days after the investigation started. They asked me if I had changed it since then, and I said of course, because almost everyone changes their mods depending on what version they're using. They asked me for a list of the mods I used, and I provided a list. I did mention at another time that I had deleted specifically my 1.16 mod config folder because I didn't plan on speedrunning 1.16 anymore, but it was completely unrelated, and it was after the mods had already said that they didn't need the folder, and that a list of the mods would suffice. GeoSquare admitted this mistake and added a small correction in the description, but I feel like that was a much bigger mistake than he made it out to be. How many people actually would have read the description and seen this correction? At this point, millions of people had already heard this mistake and were unlikely to see this very small correction. And a lot of people hung on to that as me destroying evidence and will never hear this response. So I decided to ask one of the official speedrun mods to come on my video and clarify. This is Wills, one of the official speedrun moderators.
As a moderator who has done 99% of the communication between
ended up getting unverified because of it, so I'm definitely no opponent to getting rid of cheaters from the leaderboard. Some things that I regret saying, but I needed evidence because he's guilty. And that's my biggest problem with the way that they handled this. I just skipped.
Show me where to go.
Blame them that much because they're a team of volunteers, most of the ways that were speculated. Although of course it's never impossible and you can always find a way. Makes me seem very suspicious, except for the fact that I didn't ever say that. I provided the mods with every file they ever asked for, and I never said that I regularly delete the contents of my mod folder. Actually, the verification team was disorganized and never even asked me anything involving my mod folder until 10 days after the investigation started. They asked me if I had changed it since then, and I said of course, because almost everyone changes their mods depending on what version they're using. They asked me for a list of the mods I used, and I provided a list. I did mention at another time that I had deleted specifically my 1.16 mod config folder because I didn't plan on speedrunning 1.16 anymore, but it was completely unrelated, and it was after the mods had already said that they didn't need the folder, and that a list of the mods would suffice. GeoSquare admitted this mistake and added a small correction in the description, but I feel like that was a much bigger mistake than he made it out to be. How many people actually would have read the description and seen this correction? At this point, millions of people had already heard this mistake and were unlikely to see this very small correction. And a lot of people hung on to that as me destroying evidence and will never hear this response. So I decided to ask one of the official speedrun mods to come on my video and clarify. This is Wills, one of the official speedrun moderators.
As a moderator who has done 99% of the communication between Dream, I can confirm there's absolutely no hesitation to provide us what was was needed, and Dream was never uncooperative during the investigation process as far as we know.
So past that, there's really only 3 major ways that you can modify your Minecraft to increase your luck. You can do it with a data pack, you can do it with a mod, you can do it by editing your version's jar file. Shortly after my stream ended the day that I had my good run, I actually uploaded my world file to Google Drive, almost immediately. You can see when it was uploaded, and you can see when any of the files within it were edited. This is all in the metadata of the file. This folder contains the data packs folder and also contains the startup logs that show what mods are loaded. Within the data packs folder, you can confirm that there's no data packs and that no data packs were deleted because it was not modified after the world was created. You can also see in the startup logs that the only 2 mods loaded were allowed mods and that there were no custom mods loaded. I don't expect you to trust me on this blindly, so I actually put the link and a tutorial to download it and how to see it for yourself in the description. On top of that, I was also able to upload my—
He is very confident. That's something good. He is very confident. Okay.
jar file that has been untouched, both with modification dates showing that they were not changed or deleted after the mods. Now, the mods never asked me for this file, so I only uploaded it recently, but the modification dates are still there. With this, it can be shown that I almost definitely did not modify the game in any of the ways that were expected. Although, of course, it's never impossible, and you can always find a way to do something if you want to. The most obvious ways to do this were those. So, the first thing that I want to say before going into more specific subjects is to please not send hate to anyone involved. I already apologized on Twitter because I had said some rude things to the mods after the video was released, and I really don't want to send hate to anybody. I responded incredibly immaturely at first because I was angry, and I really do regret my response. But I would think that the average person being falsely publicly accused might react in a similar way. I don't know. I'm very competitive, so being called a cheater just really set me off at first. But now that that's out of the way, in the video, they used the logs that I mentioned before to show that I had Fabric API loaded, but they didn't mention that it showed that nothing else was loaded. They also alluded to the fact that I'm suspicious because I used Fabric, a mod loader. But Fabric is used by more than half of all of the top runners on the leaderboard. And actually, I would have much preferred using Optifine, where you can't use mods. And I did, until they banned Optifine from speedruns and told people to use Fabric instead. So I switched to Fabric because I had to, and then I was called suspicious because of it. You can actually tell that I would have preferred to stay on Optifine because I ran 1.15 live shortly after these runs, where you can actually use Optifine, and I was using Optifine, not Fabric. Matter of fact, in one of those 1.15 runs during that stream, I almost broke the world record on a version that doesn't have piglin trades, and also on a client that doesn't have an option to add mods. So I don't think that the way this was phrased in the video is a fair way to put it. But another thing is that Geosquare said in the video that Fabric API was a mod creation tool.
The Fabric API, a mod creation tool.
Which is just extremely misleading. It's a required mod for almost every single mod in Fabric. So much so that a lot of people think that you need it for every mod. And I was actually asked by the mods if I thought that. But they didn't mention that in the video. And yet again, they use this to make me look suspicious. He also uses the logs and shows them on screen as proof that I had Fabric API loaded. But again, he doesn't mention that it doesn't show any other mods loaded. And that's called cherry picking. Using the facts that support your claim as evidence, but ignoring any facts that go against your claim. If they were being completely fair, he should have presented the fact that this log showed that there was no other mods. But it would weaken their argument, so they didn't mention it. And this is a recurring theme throughout the video. He says a lot of things that might be partially true, but says them in a very misleading way that would make a reasonable person think that I look guilty. I'm sure there's a chance that one of you or your friends saw that video and went, wow, Dream deleted evidence because he's guilty. And that's my biggest problem with the way that they handled this. I don't blame them that much because they're a team of volunteers, mostly consisted of young people, and everybody is bound to make mistakes, especially when you're younger, including me. But when you're calling into question someone's character, you really have to be careful what you say. The official owners and admins of SpeedRun.com, run the leaderboard, made a statement that the video was, quote, lacking in the level of objectivity we hope to see around communications by the game moderation team to the community. Which I completely agree with. I wish that the mods would have remained more neutral and just presented the facts because that's their job as moderators. And I just want to say here that at this point, I don't care if my run is verified, and I'm not resubmitting or appealing the fact that it wasn't. As much as I may disagree with it, I've never really cared too much about leaderboards, and I wasn't even planning on submitting any 1.16 runs because I was just playing for practice and for fun. I mean, I was streaming on my Twitch, and that's why I didn't upload any 1.16 runs to my YouTube channel. Regardless of the fact that the 7.5 trillion odds are incorrect, I still had a very lucky streak, something you probably wouldn't expect to see in a small community like speedrunning. You would expect to see it in Minecraft overall, but it's much less likely to happen during a speedrun. So for that reason, I understand completely why the mods are skeptical, and I respect their decision not to verify the run. I'm upset that the video was made and how it was made, and that there's a lot of people that will probably believe that I cheated and never get to see this video countering it, but I don't believe that the mods were being intentionally malicious. I believe that the reason this was handled poorly can just be attributed to the fact that I have a huge channel and they're not used to dealing with that, so they obviously did quite a few things differently than they usually would. Now that I've pretty much talked about proving every possible way that I can about why I didn't cheat, I want to talk about something a little bit more serious, which is just related to bias. And again, even though I'm expressing this, I don't want to send any hate to anybody, and I believe that the mod team is full of very respectable, honest people. But I made some claims early on that I felt targeted and that I thought that the mod team was biased, and a lot of people were upset with that because they couldn't see how they could be biased. I just want to share my point of view because from my perspective, maybe you can understand why I reacted the way that I did. First of all, the SpeedRun.com Minecraft Bedrock Edition team, which is a similar team to the one who worked on this, but for Bedrock Edition, completely banned me from ever submitting an official run.
Oh yeah.
Well before this happened, without giving a single reason why, other than that they don't like me. And I have never even played Minecraft Bedrock Edition or done a single speedrun on that game. But I'm still banned, and I have yet to be told why. Obviously, this didn't give me as much confidence in their sister team, Java Edition, giving me fair treatment. However, I don't think that the actions of the Bedrock team reflect on the intentions of the Java team. Another thing though is that while the mods were looking into my 1.16 run, a lot of the official speedrun verifiers were saying incredibly disrespectful things about me, about my fans, and essentially harassing me, which obviously led to me saying some things that I regret saying, but I'm sure that anyone can understand why that would be frustrating. Before all this, I tried to be extremely friendly with the mod team and I helped them catch many cheaters. There was actually a point a few months ago where I was in a call with a bunch of them doing basically a PowerPoint presentation with proof that the world loading screen can prove one of the top runs is fake, and that run ended up getting unverified because of it. So I'm definitely no opponent to getting rid of cheaters from leaderboards, and I do my best to help where I can. But during the investigation, I had my doubts about the way that the investigation was being done. And I was really stressed about it because I was almost completely left in the dark and I didn't know what was happening. And everything that I did here didn't really make me feel super optimistic about them doing a good job. One of the mods, who asked me not to name them, frequently said things that led to me having doubts about the investigation. Quote, everyone was still discussing whether the decision was right 10 minutes before the video was published. And also, quote, they were just yelling at each other to finish faster. That same mod told me after the results were released, quote, for the record, I don't believe at all that you cheated, and also, quote, I'm probably going to be quitting the mod team because of this. There are only about 10 or so active moderators that were involved in the investigation as far as I'm aware, and this was one of them. And I'm sure that anyone could understand why it would be reasonable to doubt the decision if I'm being told this by one of the moderators. I really worried about what was going on behind the scenes because of this, and this occupied most of my stress. And this isn't really important to the math, but it's definitely important to how the math is interpreted. If the mod team was biased against me, they would be more likely to make mistakes against me, like misquoting me or using incorrect formulas, because the small details wouldn't matter as much to them, even if they wouldn't do it on purpose, which I'm sure they wouldn't. As much as that sucks for me, and I wish that some members in the speedrun community looked at me differently, it is what it is. Before this whole thing went down, I had a lot of respect for the mod team, and I really hope that even though I'm not happy right now, I can regain all of that respect for them, and I hope that the same goes for me, because I said some dumb things too, because the community is an amazing place, and like I said, it's not like they're intentionally trying to sabotage my career or something. I mean, they didn't ban me or remove any of my other runs or do anything super unreasonable out of bias like the Bedrock mod team did. I think if they had removed my other runs or banned me, that would have been very biased. But I don't think that what they actually did was biased. And like I said, I do believe that they tried to do their best to come to a fair decision. After reading the document myself, I was surprised and it seemed like a very good job. The only reason I was insistent on the math being wrong is because I know that I didn't cheat. And I also know that 7.5 trillion is just too unlikely to be reasonable if I didn't cheat. So I could assume that the math was off. Again, I don't care at all about my speedrun. I care more about defending my character than defending a dumb leaderboard position. When I joined Minecraft speedrunning, I didn't even submit any of my runs.
See, that kind of makes sense. Like, if he was cheating and he really wanted to beat the speedrun, he would, put me back. Like, he's just trying
Until
to,
I saw some comments telling me that I should, that I ended up doing it. I was mostly practicing for Manhunt because I wanted to try and challenge myself even more. Now, Matthew, which is the most qualified speedrun mod who wrote a lot of the paper, said in the Discord chat after the video was uploaded, quote, look, at worst stream did mild cheat at block game fast. Make of that what you will. Obviously, I don't agree with that because I think that cheaters ruin the heart of the game, but I just don't think that the mods realize that, to me, it's much deeper than a leaderboard position. I have an amazing community and an amazing group of fans, and I don't need to officially speedrun. I do it because I like it and it's fun. I get less viewers on my record videos than I do on my normal videos, and I get less views on my speedrun Twitch streams than my normal Twitch streams. I also didn't even upload a single one of the speedruns that were investigated onto any of my channels, not even highlights or anything. So again, to me, I care much more about my character than a leaderboard or any kind of benefit I could get from speedrunning. One of the last things that I want to mention is a quote from one of the Minecraft developers. Quote, just going off of chances is quite dumb. Also, quote, a lot of speedrunning Minecraft is RNG, or at least speedrunning until you get good RNG. Then he went on to say, quote, they really should consider a better process, like you can force speedrunners to stream with some anti-cheat mod or something. And this is actually something that I've suggested many times, and a long time ago I even offered to try and help come up with ideas for it. But As the speedrun mods are volunteers and don't get paid, it would be really hard to find a developer to do it. So, as much as I could suggest it, they never were able to do it. You may have noticed that this video has monetization on, and that's for a reason. I'm going to be taking every dollar made from this video and donating it to the mods in order for them to develop a speedrunning client.
Whoa.
That way there will be less cheaters, and if you get really lucky, you're not going to get accused for it. Even though I don't have any plans to speedrun for the leaderboards in the future, I still love the community, and I think that this would be a really good thing for the speedrunning community, so I'm looking forward to see what happens. As a final closing note, if despite all the evidence that I've presented you still believe that the odds are too low, I want to mention a couple things from the report. One, the expert that wrote the report says that he, quote, disagrees that the situation suggests that cheating is an unavoidable conclusion, and two, that the probability presented is not the probability that I'm innocent. It is just the probability of a rare event happening under specific circumstances. And the expert says that in order to find a correct probability of me changing the drop rates, quote, external evidence that the probabilities were modified at this specific point would be needed to produce a significant probability of cheating. Essentially, the fact that something unlikely happened shouldn't be the only evidence to back up
that
an
makes
accusation.
sense.
But I think that's all I have to say. Thank you if you listened to the whole thing. I encourage you to like this video, that way it has a higher chance of getting put into the algorithm so more people see it. Generally, accusations are seen much more than the responses to those accusations, so it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
If you see somebody talking about this, I encourage you to tell them about my video. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Bye.
Okay, can I say one thing real quick? It's probably not going to record, but wait, can I pull it up on my phone? Okay. So, this video actually has 518,000 likes and 14,000 dislikes. So, that is a big difference in like ratio. Let me pull it up. Alright, look at it. It's an ad. Yeah, look at it. Now look. Oh, it's 26. It just went up. Whoa, I think that's like, what, 16,000 in like 2 seconds? Okay. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this? 1 second. That was the video. Okay, what are your thoughts on this? I don't really know what to say. That was a cool video. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next video. Bye-bye.